I swear, recently no game is good. We're in an era that feels really stale. I hate it! Every single time I start a new, modern game, and every time I feel something's missing.
Hey, what are you up to?
It's so over. Gaming as a whole is over. Battle Royales, story games that are practically movies, more Battle Royales.
I remember the days of Mario 64.
Hello, you there?
Katamari
What are you even talking
on
about?
PS2.
You're kinda scaring me, you know. I always ask myself, when is it my turn to be happy with modern games? I would even take Sonic 06 over Sonic Forces. Overwatch 2 is better than Team Fortress 2.
Did I just hear a bad take?
Huh? What the? You were here? I don't really think that, to be clear. Also, you were kinda talking to yourself quite a bit there. It was kinda creepy if you ask me. What even got you this spaced out? Oh, don't worry about it. I was just thinking about how old games are better than new games. Naturally, that's what nostalgia does to you. It's not just that, you know. Old games just have this sort of charm to them. That's it! Charm is the missing factor of modern games. Huh? I don't think I follow. To put a long explanation short, actually, why don't you sit down for this one? Long explanation short, he says. Just when I thought this wasn't gonna take long. Hey, you're the one who asked, you know. Besides, this will help you learn something of the past. You can ask anyone who's grown up with games if current games are better than past games, and many would prefer older games than new games. I do have a whole video talking about old games versus new games, but this topic is a bit different. When I talk about charms games have, I'm referring more to the past rather than the present. But that doesn't mean the present games don't have charm in them. It's sadly something I think is dying off these days, with video games being more story-based movies rather than just something fun. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. What do I even mean by charm, you may be asking? But I wasn't. Right. Wait, yes you were. Whatever. What I mean by charm is, sure, games can be fun gameplay wise, but what about everything else? The music, the animations, the plot, the world, all of these things are needed to make a game, and all of them should work together to bring charm to the game. Take Donkey Kong Country for an example. The game is a lot of fun for a platformer already, but the music emphasizes the environment more, the animations all the characters and enemies would do, the random story that the series has. These are all things that make the game feel wacky, and that makes the game's charming point its wackiness. Okay, I'm starting to understand things a bit more. Good. Guess that means I can move on to more examples of charms in video games. The most fond memories I have of charming games come from the past. Now, I personally believe that these types of games came from the SNES era of games, but were at their peak between the N64 and GameCube era. I know I used Nintendo consoles, but whenever I use a console to show the era, I'm talking about all consoles that were relevant in that time period. Anyways, early 3D graphics tended to have a more cartoonish feel to them, mainly because the graphics weren't as crazy as they are today. They were pretty simple. So most of the time, you would get a pretty good idea of what things were meant to be. Animations wouldn't feel super detailed, and when they were, they would stand out quite a lot. The premise of the games would be pretty simple, so you wouldn't really have to think too hard to follow the story. Even the environment would play a part in all this, with games putting some strange details to them. Now that's not to say that present games don't have all this, but something I left out is everything I mentioned had fun as the main point. In a strange way, it would feel as if the developers are also trying to have fun just making the game. I'll be honest, I'm trying to describe something that's pretty hard to describe. So I'll use some games for examples. Rare is a company that I think only knows how to make charming games. Sure, they don't make many games these days, and you can kind of point a finger towards someone. I don't want to say any names. But in their prime, they were making some crazy bangers for Nintendo with the Donkey Kong Country series, Banjo-Kazooie, and a game that I think pushes some sort of boundary, Conker's Bad Fur Day. They're all well beloved because they bring really fun memories to many people who've played them, and it's thanks to the charm they had. They were always wacky games that never felt like it had to make sense. There were no big limits to what made sense for those games, so the developers ended up making a world that felt to be fun at no matter what. You can see this in countless other games from the past. It's probably because the audience and competition was so different back in the day. I mean, this was a time where PlayStation, Sega, and Nintendo were fighting against each other with their mascots. These days, that doesn't really exist. Oh yeah, Crash Bandicoot is a really good example with charms in games. Much of the animations in that game are just really fun that even dying would feel like it's a main part of the game. Like, how do you even make losing in a game fun? Although I can go on and on about charms games have, I think you get the point.
You got that right, but still, I don't see how that's any different from today.
Really? I thought it was pretty obvious. I guess it won't hurt to talk about this for a little longer. Sure, a game doesn't need to rely on charm to be good, but having charm in a game makes the difference between a good game and a beloved, memorable, and nostalgic game. This time, I'll be comparing games from the same series because trust me, some games can be really underwhelming compared to their past games. And here is a game that will probably trigger their fanbase for me talking about it.
What game is it? It's Persona 5. Oh no, I hope you know what you're doing!
Persona 5 wasn't a bad game. I talked about it already, but it wasn't the first Persona game I've played. That title goes to Persona 4, and after playing Persona 5, I didn't enjoy it as much as Persona 4. Maybe it's my bias, but there are days where I try to find the reason as to why this is, and I think I have my answer. There are multiple reasons as to why this is, but I think I'll stick with one because there are other games I want to talk about. Persona 5 takes place in Tokyo, as some of you may know. Many of the locations are practically exactly the same in real life. That's cool, I guess, but every Persona game before this one takes place in a made-up town in Japan. Now granted, there are genuine similarities to where those places were based off of, but they had a different vibe to them compared to Persona 5's Tokyo. Setting alone isn't enough. The premise was random too. I mean, who thinks of going inside of a TV as a way to travel through worlds? Sure, changing dimensions using phones was interesting too, but it was kind of lame at the same time.
You just sound like you're a hater. Shut up, I just like how simple the older games felt.
Maybe I really am being a hater, but for some reason, Persona 5 feels pretty lame to me. I can appreciate many things the game had, but maybe I just don't like the cast or how trendy the location is, and I'm more into the simplicity from the other games. Anyways, I'll move on from Persona. Paper Mario is another series that kind of lost its charm. It's really Mario RPG in general, but I'll focus on Paper Mario for now. In the past, these games would feel like you were playing some sort of storybook. Characters were really interesting, the story was fun, and the battle mechanics were pretty engaging. But then Sticker Star came out and ruined the fun. Personally, I didn't think the game was all that bad when I played it, but then I saw the past games and immediately preferred them over Sticker Star. From Sticker Star onwards, original characters started to exist less and less, and you would have the base Mario characters. I know people were excited to have a Bob-omb as a helper in the Origami King. The full charm of Paper Mario didn't go away though during those games. They just felt a lot weaker compared to the past games where charm is an adjective you can use to describe them. There's a reason why many people ask for remakes of games. Games in the past were just that good. One more thing, I want to use 3 games as an example this time. Some of you may be familiar with a game called Team Fortress 2. This is one of my favorite shooters of all time, let alone a class-based shooter. There are so many charms to TF2 that I'd love to go over, but I'm not. Years after that game came out, Overwatch came out. Now I will prefer TF2 over Overwatch any day of the week, but I can't say Overwatch didn't have charm to it, at least it did at the start. But at the very least, both of those games tower over Concord in terms of charm. I mean, Concord's lifespan speaks for itself. By the way, I started writing this script before Concord came out, and somehow this video came out after the game died. How funny.
I guess the best way to put it is games are starting to lack creativity in a way. I wouldn't go that far. Sure, a majority of games nowadays are just movies masked as games, but there's actually hope for the future.
Enter Astro Bot.
This game is something I thought was missing from modern PlayStation, a game that anyone can enjoy. Much of its charm felt very familiar to what a game would have back in the day. Death animations are like Crash Bandicoot, mechanics are easy and fun, and nothing about the game is serious. You are playing as a literal robot fighting an alien. Was it a gimmick to play with nostalgia? That's something haters would say. But this didn't feel like another platformer from another company. This felt like an experience you will enjoy no matter what. I say all this without even playing the game. But I promise you, people who actually played it would agree, unless they hated the game. There's nothing I can really say about that.
Man, the way you talk about games having charm to them makes me wish I was there to play them. What's stopping you? A lot of the games have been ported or remade for modern consoles, so there shouldn't be a reason why you can't. That's true, but I'd rather play Fortnite. Oh, we're doomed. I'm kidding. I'll try them out eventually when you have a console that isn't just the Switch. You know what? I kind of forgot that was the only console we have over here right now.